everybody, welcome to the show. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Raising A to Z. It is an informational and inspirational YouTube channel all about homeschooling. My name is Amanda. Last week I did a great video on how long does it take to homeschool your kids each day? Like how long should you be sitting down to do your education workbook kind of component of your day with your kids? And if you want to watch that video, it's a great video. I totally recommend it. I will put a link up here. But this week I'm going to answer a question that's very similar. It's kind of got the same kind of vibe. It is, how often should you be doing that with your kids? How often should you be homeschooling your children? And the answer is obviously going to vary because every family is unique. Every family has different circumstances and different lives, but I'm going to give a couple of options and a couple of recommendations when it comes to how often you should be homeschooling. But before we get started, if you have more questions about schedules or routines, different ways of homeschooling, approaches, supplies you might need, you are definitely going to want to check out my book, How to Start Homeschooling When You Have No Idea Where to Start. This is a guide that I made specifically for new homeschoolers to help you get started with all of the basic information you need right here in one spot. So I will put a link down below if you want to check it out. It is available on Amazon. So whenever someone asks me how often should we be homeschooling, like does it have to be an everyday thing? Does it have to be a Monday to Friday kind of thing? How often should it be? My first question is, have you deschooled? I have a great video on deschooling if that's something you haven't done. If you're just leaving the public school system or a private school, or you're feeling like you've just never taken time to like just exist outside of education and educating your kids, this is a video you're going to want to check out. It is super important to deschool, especially if you have left the system. It's vital. The whole deschooling process really does help with this mindset shift that you need to make when you switch from a public or private form of education, a traditional form of education, over to homeschooling. Because part of that mindset shift is starting to understand that learning doesn't have to happen Monday through Friday between the hours of 9 and 3. And that is a very important shift to happen because it gives you so much more flexibility as homeschoolers. It gives you the permission to make a schedule that actually fits your family and to adjust your schedule to what is going to work for you guys. Not what's going to work for the system, not what the system tells you you have to do. That mindset shift allows you to build a homeschooling routine and schedule that is going to work for your family. So, for example, I know people who don't homeschool in the morning. They work during the day, and so they only homeschool from like 4 to 6 at night. That's when they homeschool. They do their workbook kind of time in the evening after they finish their workday. That works for them. I know people who do their kind of like work week, homeschool week is like Wednesday through Sunday, and then they take Mondays and Tuesdays off because that's just how it works best with their like shift work and the way their work schedule works. So there's a lot of options that you have depending on your family. So that's the first thing I'm gonna say is there is no true single answer, but you don't have to stick to the constraints of, Monday through Friday, 9 to 3. Like that's not a thing you have to do. The other thing that we do and that we make very important distinctions with our kids is that learning doesn't have to happen at a certain time in a certain place. So that is a super important thing that you also learn when you're deschooling, is that learning can happen anywhere, anytime, and that learning is not designated only to workbook time. So when you start factoring things like that in, there's going to be a lot of learning that can happen in your lives that isn't going to be structured around sitting at a table. An example I always use is like on Wednesdays, we go and we do a play group. That's kind of a thing that we do in our family. We like to go to this play group. We don't do any curriculum or workbook work on Wednesday because we have a whole morning of learning activities that we're doing outside of the home. So there's a lot of learning things that can happen. We teach our kids, that's something that like my husband and I really focus on, is that learning doesn't happen at a certain time or under a certain set of conditions. You can be learning all the time. You can be learning anywhere, anytime, any place, about all kinds of things. And there's a great freedom that comes from that, is that you can have these learning experiences and still realize the educational value when you have this like mindset shift. That it's just very liberating as parents and as for the kids too, right? Because the thing that you don't want is kids to grow up and become adults who don't think they know how to learn unless someone is directly teaching them. Kids who don't know how to learn unless they're sitting at a desk with a workbook and someone's telling them what to do. We want to raise our children, it's a goal in our family, to not only love learning, but also learn how to learn and learn that learning doesn't have to happen under certain circumstances. They can be kind of in charge of their learning and find different resources, find different materials, learn through different means, and this is one of the ways that we do it. So we like to try to break out of that routine of the typical school week. There obviously are going to be families who like to use curriculum. We use curriculum, that's great. We do like a seat work time with our kids on a regular basis. So I guess the bigger question is like, how often should you be doing that? And like I said, it's still gonna vary from family to family when you do it, how often you're doing it. Some parents really like to do the 5 days a week. I think for some parents who are very into large amounts of structure, who still follow kind of more traditional schooling type approaches, or for families who are doing things like online learning or online school instead of doing like just independent workbook where you can work on your own pace. When you're following kind of other programs that are geared outside of your home, you might be on a 5-day schedule. So if you are a family who is using like online learning, you might still be kind of stuck to that schedule, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It works for some families. And it does give you kind of a nice consistent routine for families who work typical 9-to-5 jobs or 8-to-4 jobs or whatever. Like, it's definitely a good routine for those families. And if it's working for you and you've been doing it for a while and you're like, hey, this really works, don't change it. Like, that is not what I'm recommending here. If it's working for you, do it. But what I often recommend when I have people ask me this question is I often recommend a 4-day work week. There's so much freedom that comes with the 4-day work week. I just find it works really well with the kids. It kind of gives them, it's not as long because we kind of break it up. I also find it gives me a lot of freedom as a parent to do what I need to do as well. One of the reasons why I love the 4-day school week for homeschooling families is it just gives you some flexibility in your week. So for example, a lot of families are similar scheduling to ours. So there's one parent home. Stefan is, my husband he works 5 days a week and then he's off on the weekends. So on the weekend, we like to try to do family stuff because he's home, right? And then, so that means that I'm by myself Monday through Friday with the kids doing all of the like homeschooling, parenting type of day, right? Which is great, it's fine, like that's not the thing. But being both teacher and parent and stay-at-home parent can be very exhausting. Like, let's be honest, it can be very exhausting. And it's often difficult to get everything done when you're trying to do these like workbook blocks and different activities and go different places and co-ops and play groups. And then when you start adding in things like trying to keep your house clean and doing some chores, and then appointments or errands or eye doctor's appointments, like there's all kinds of things that come up. And so it's kind of difficult to cram all those things in a 5-day week. We see that even in the public school system. Like, it is like such a big deal when your kid has to go to the dentist, because now you have to pull them out of class, you have to take them to the dentist, and then they have to come back and they have to catch up on what they've missed, right? So that's the thing with a 5-day work week. It doesn't really give you the flexibility to kind of do the things that you need to do to stay on top of your home, or to do things that are medically necessary or errands that come up, right? So the nice thing about a 4-day school week for us, that the reason why I recommend it is because it gives a day where you can do what you want to do or need to do. So for example, we typically do kind of a Wednesday because we're in town already. We live outside of the city. So Monday and Tuesday, we do kind of more heavy workbook kind of days, more learning activities, unit study, hands-on stuff. Wednesdays, we go to playgroup in the morning, and then we do errands or appointments on Wednesday. So Wednesday is kind of like our flexibility day. So I will book chiropractor's appointments or doctor's appointments, dentist appointments. I will try to book them on a Wednesday in the afternoon or the evening, so that like we don't have to worry about that. So when we come back on Thursday and we're doing more workbooks, and then we do our Fun Day Friday activities, we have this day where I can do what I need to do. So if we have appointments or we have errands that we need to run in town, we can do that, and it doesn't take away from me having to like catch up on anything with the kids, right? I'm not having to reschedule. I just have this day where it's like, this is the day to do those kinds of things. And it gives me some flexibility too, right? So if the kids If I couldn't get an appointment, it had to be on Friday, well then we would just do our workbooks on a Wednesday, and then we would do our Friday would be our swing day for the week, like do whatever we need to do that day, right? It also gives me the flexibility that on a Wednesday that, let's say we don't have any appointments, we don't have errands, I could just focus on doing a few things around the house. So I can do an extra big tidy up. I can, pick a project that needs to get done around the house, switch the kids' clothes over. That's going to be the next big project in my house. Parenting wise, as winter's going to be ending soon, I'm going to have to pick a Wednesday and switch all of their winter stuff out and get all of their like spring, summer stuff out, right? So it gives me this day that I can do that and not feel like I have to catch up, not feel like I have to really heavily reschedule my week. I don't have to worry about us missing out on these educational blocks, because I don't want to miss, not that I don't want to miss out, but I don't want to like get in a routine of like skipping school to do housework, right? Like you don't want to, that's not something I want to do. I kind of want to have like a routine and a consistency to our day, right? And to our week. And so it's a nice way to just give yourself that day to do what you need to do or what you want to do. And it also gives the kids a bit of a break. So I find a lot of kids find a 5-day school week really long, especially if you're doing like when your kids are older and they're doing, 2 or 3 hours of seat work throughout a day. Having to do that 5 days a week can be very, very long for them. And so it kind of gives them this nice little break in the middle of their week. And I do recommend it, like the middle of the week, but it can be whatever day you want. Scheduling how you want to do it is up to you, but it does give them a nice little bit of a break. It's not as overwhelming, and it gives them a chance on those days when we are kind of at home or we're not running errands. I consider those like free days. So they get to do a lot of free play, they'll get to do a lot of exploring, they get to work on what they want to work on, and that is super fantastic for them as well. So their day isn't as structured, and they get some freedom to do and learn what they want to learn, which is part of my goal as a homeschooling parent, again, to teach them how to learn and learn on their own and like learning, right? And so by giving them this freedom and this time to do that, they get that benefit to actually go and try it out on their own without me having to like take away from their like workbook blocks, right? That is one of the reasons why I recommend a 4-day school week for a lot of people. If a 5-day work week is working for you, that's great. But I also want to remind you that like our 4-day school week that we do with our kids, we only do 3 days of workbooks. So Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, we do our workbook days. We have our block before we move on to any activities or whatever. Friday is not the day that we do workbooks. Friday is the day where we do we do our Fun Day Friday, where we do art and poetry tea parties, and we do some life skills. And that is still something we consider part of our homeschooling curriculum and homeschooling education. While we do a 4-day school week, it's not always 4 days of workbooks. And I think that's something that is definitely you need to remember when you're trying to decide how you're going to do your homeschooling with your kids. Like I said, if you are new to homeschooling, if you're trying to figure out what schedule is going to work for you, I always recommend the 4-day school week to start. You can always add in the 5th day later on if it's something you feel you really need, or if it just works better for your family. But 4 days kind of consistently throughout a week is more than enough. And I just think it's just it just gives so much flexibility to both kids and parents, and you still kind of get everything done. That's my recommendation. Let me know what kind of school work week schedule you have down in the comments. If you like this and you want to see how we do our week, make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.